Hello everyone, this is Sankalp again on behalf of Crestech. Welcome you all for today's webinar. So guys, as we all know, the mobile applications are one of the fastest and most continuously updated software for end users, hence they need constant testing and deployment. So today we're going to talk about mobile test automation, are you leading or catching up? For which we have our keynote speaker Nikita Sood, who is a solution architect with Crestech Software Systems pre-sales team. She has good experience in IT industry with experience spanning across test automation, Mobiquity, cloud, solution design, and technology consulting. So to set today's agenda, we will cover what are the key expectations from mobile test automation and what are the challenges faced during its implementation. After which, we will ask Nikita regarding how to overcome these challenges and make the test automation strategy a success. Also, post that, we will have a Q&A session where we will pick few questions from our chat section as per time permits. Just in case your question is left unanswered, we will mail you your queries. You will also receive a recording of the today's session as well. So let's get started with our today's webinar. So Nikita, first of all, I'll welcome you and thank you for taking time for today's to be a keynote speaker for our session today.
Hello everyone. Hi Sankalp. Thank you for introducing me.
So Nikita, to start with, I would really want to first of all, sorry for the technical glitch here, and I would like to formally welcome you again, and thanks for taking time to be a keynote speaker for today.
Thank you, Sankalp.
So let me ask you a first question from our end. Now, so what is MTA and what do the developers and product companies expect to achieve from MTA?
Yeah, okay, so Sankalp, let me just give everyone an introduction to what exactly we are talking about when we say MTA. So MTA, everyone, it's about mobile automation, mobile test automation. And as we all understand that in order to test the applications continuously, mobile test automation is the key. So, and in today's time, mobile test automation, it's getting broadened, bolstered by practices such as risk-based test case designing, test-driven service virtualization, test data management, and a very hot term that we are hearing in the market nowadays, it's DevOps. So I think in order to integrate with DevOps, mobile test automation is the key. And it is very crucial even that it is brought into picture on time. Moreover, the applications need to be tested not just from the functional point of view, but also from the non-functional aspects. So when we talk about test automation, the main focus goes to functional part of the application. We think about testing the application from the first functional aspects on different devices, different platforms, from every aspect. But what about the non-functional aspects? That's something that we often miss out on. But mobile test automation on a whole, it's about considering even the non-functional aspects. That is about the UI, security, performance, user experience. Because imagine what if your application is working perfectly fine, but what if it it crashes at some point of time due to increase in the number of users? That is a performance issue, and that also needs to be taken into consideration. What about the security aspect? What about there is some data breach, some security breach in your application and some secure data is hacked by some hacker? What about that? You will lose your image. You will lose a lot there. So these are few non-functional aspects that also need to be paid attention to. But one of the major expectations ahead, so these are just a few things that are, often missed out. So when we talk about what are the expectations from mobile test automation, the major thing is about one of the major expectations is that it should be DevOps ready. So with frequent releases in the market, when we talk about DevOps, it's all about frequently releasing your application, new versions are being introduced into the market, and due to which the time for testing is getting reduced. Often at times the testing is ignored even at times. There are scenarios when there are daily releases coming up or they're bi-weekly, they're bi-monthly, agile in place. It happens that testing is often ignored. So yes, there is a need for test automation so that this testing activity can be made a bit more faster. And also it would, anyhow, in reduce the bug leakages. It won't be reporting the bugs for you. That is a kind of myth that people have with test automation. It won't be reporting the bugs for you, but yeah, it will help you encounter wherever is a challenge, and that will at the end help in reducing the bug leakages. Also, the framework implemented should be readily integrated with various CI/CD tools like Jira, Jenkins, Bamboo, so that the test automation activity is automatically inclined with the development cycle. The moment your piece of code is ready, your section of the application is ready, it is integrated, you're good to go. It is shooted out by the developers through a command line, and it will be tested at there and then. Moving ahead, once this activity is done, so once it is DevOps ready, the other expectation is that it should cater to your entire end-to-end QA automation. So as we were discussing about the functional part, the non-functional part, so these two parts, these are just a high-level categorization. These need to be catered equally. None of them should be ignored. Moving ahead, there needs to be an increase. There is an expectation that there should be an increase in the business participation. Now, with the tools coming in market, many of the commercial tools, the business users, the SMEs, the BAs, they just need to write the user stories. They are just a click away into getting converted into test cases, and those test cases are like the high level test cases are created, and the test scripts, or only the test scripts need to be written into that, and your entire user story is ready and automated. So that is a kind of expectation, and yes, this is very much happening now. Moving ahead, parallel execution, and this is very critical when we talk about mobile test automation, because till the time you are not able to test in parallel on n number of devices, on n number of platforms, your mobile test automation is not really useful. Reason one, because there are so many devices in the market that till the time it's not feasible to test manually on all of them. If it would have been feasible, then really there won't have been much of a need of mobile test automation. Also, with mobile test automation, test automation on a whole, if I talk about test automation on a whole, so test automation, testing on a desktop application on a web browser, it's far more simpler because only n number of browsers need to be considered there. But with mobile test automation, there are n number of devices. There might be 5, 10, 15, 20, that can go up to hundreds of devices. And that's what even needs to be achieved. If the testing is done sequentially, then there is no point. So yes, parallelism is the key. After which, once parallelism is achieved, then the next point, next critical thing is about increasing the device coverage across. So with test automation in place, it is very much feasible to increase your device coverage. And again, the main thing in order to increase device coverage is about creating the right device matrix. Till the time you don't have the right device matrix with you, device coverage cannot be done in the correct manner. After which, one of the key expectations from this activity is that the scripts created during this activity should be durable and stable enough to be executed in different environments with the same or different data sets. That is a variable part. But this is, I think, I have heard of this expectation plenty number of times from many customers, that they want one script to be, have a lot of reusability. Same script should be executed on n number of devices. That is absolutely true and that is feasible. But it's just that it is important that you need to have your devices in hand first. You need to have the list of devices in with you first, because when you do the execution, all scripts are not feasible to be executed on all devices. There might be some small tweakings that need to be done, and yes, they are very much reusable.
Okay. So yeah, that seems to be some major expectations. So when the expectations are clear, then what is the challenge that stops everyone from implementing test automation, especially mobile test automation? Is that the technology, skill, or what? What we are missing here?
Okay, so you see, Sankalp, just having the expectations clear is not the end. Implementing mobile test automation is again not a challenge. Anyone can implement mobile test automation. You can get a tool, you can implement a technology, or you can use any tool, any framework, and you can implement mobile test automation. But the real challenge is that how and where to implement MTA. That's where the main specialization is required. And at the end, even after implementing it, MTA, are you able to get the ROI out of it? Because ROI is one of the main key factors that determines the success of any project, right? So it is very important that you need to determine it at initially and understand, are you really getting the ROI out of it? If you aren't getting the ROI, then really it might not even be needed there. Okay, so getting back to your question, what are the challenges? So the answer is that there is not just one challenge, but there are multiple challenges. First of all, it is very crucial that the right set of devices be identified on which the testing needs to be done. So just one question to you, Sankar. Do you
Hmm.
know how many devices are there in the market today?
Must be a few millions as of now.
Okay, that's a good guess, but no, the it's not millions, but it's billions. Approximately 5 billion devices are there in the market today.
Wow, that's a humongous number.
Exactly. So what with this many devices in market today, it is very crucial and critical to create a right device matrix for testing.
Hmm. So is that it, or well, there are any other
Yeah,
challenges as well?
yeah, this was just the first major challenge. Then comes the challenge of testing an application in different networks. So today we have 2G, 3G, 4G, Wi-Fi, LTE, and recently I even heard that 5G is coming into picture. So when we say there are so many networks out there, are we really testing on all those networks? The answer is no. At times we might miss on 2G, we might miss on 3G. So these are the kind of challenges. But when an application is launched, just think about what is the version of OS in the market right now. We are on 9.0, and there was a time when 2.0 was launched, and there were many applications at that time also in the Play Store. So what about your application compatibility for the people who are still using such old phones? And so plus they are in remote areas where there is not very good network. They might be just using 2G network. Is your application really compatible there? So network compatibility is a very important factor that needs to be taken into consideration when testing is done. And that is of course a challenge because having access to all the networks, having the SIM cards, you probably require SIM cards for a few testing parts. You need specific phones for like specific testing LTE functionality and then Wi-Fi. All these are the things for which a lot of device you need to have access to all such kind of networks as well. Now, when we talk about so many devices, even after identifying the devices for testing, it is impossible to create such a huge device lab with so many version upgrades coming in the market for every OS. Like I was talking about Android, we are at 9.0, but still people are at 4.0. It is difficult to upgrade the device lab each time, and once you build a device lab, so if I talk about any organization, once when they launch an application, they mostly test it at like the latest versions or one or two versions before that. The older applications, what about the older version of these applications, or what about the people who are using the older version of those applications? Is it being tested for them if you're using a physical device lab? Is it feasible for any organization to maintain such a big device lab? The answer is no. So it is important that the new uh, simulators, emulators that are coming up be used. Then there are many cloud mobile device labs. They should be made use of. So that is the key. There are challenges with the hardware part, having such a big, with new brands coming up. Today you might have 10 mobile phones in your organization for testing, the 10 latest ones. What about next month? There might be 10 more introduced in the market. And what about after that? After that, every month new phones are coming in the market. With a market of 5 billion users, it is impossible to have such a big device lab. Hence, it is important that, you know, the cloud device labs be more utilized. And okay, now moving ahead, after all this is done, um, I think after the device challenge is also over, then again comes one factor that is often ignored. That is about backward compatibility. And this is something that most of the organizations even miss on, or most of the people, the testing teams also, they don't really think about the backward compatibility of the applications. Suppose you have a user who is using your application when the first or second version came out, but they don't really upgrade the application. They don't have the auto upgrade on for them. What about that? Is your application the new versions coming up or the older versions that they're using? Do you provide support for that? Probably no. You don't even have clue for many of the versions, or teams might come, people might go, and few functionalities might be lost. So it is important that the new versions that are coming, they are tested for older versions of OS, for the your application is compatible. Your older versions of even applications are compatible on devices. So that is one key factor, and it's often, yeah, I'm saying missed on even. Now, after all that is done, the most critical uh, thing that comes up is selecting the right test automation tool or framework. So based on your application, based on the customer's application, there might be a different requirement, there might be different technology. So with so many tools like commercial open source tools in the market, it is really hard to find the best fit for your application until the tool's feasibility is done. So in order to achieve success of your mobile test automation, or to overcome this challenge of selecting the correct tool, the key is doing a tool feasibility or doing multiple POCs. That's how only this can be overcome. I won't talk about how we can overcome it right now, but I'm just talking about, yeah, this is a critical thing that needs to be taken into account whilst proceeding with mobile test automation, or while strategizing mobile test automation. And finally, even when and once uh, the above activity of tools feasibility is also done, then comes another challenge: understanding an application's the technology behind an application. Every application is built in a different manner. It might be native, it might be hybrid, it might be a responsive website. So every application is different in its own way. There might be a different technology at the back end. So when automating an application, it is very critical to understand that what technology is being used at the back end, what are the different layers being used, and what are the different interacting layers, what exactly are they doing, where are they interacting. So yeah, that is quite key, that needs to be taken into account. These are few of the major challenges. There might be many more practical challenges that come up, but yeah, at a high level, these are the main challenges.
Great, Nikita. So now we understand that, some major challenges. So now, since we all understand the state of the test automation and the challenges, our listeners would also like to understand how we can overcome these challenges. Is that a tool that you recommend, or some activities, or what should be done for achieving the best ROI from MDA?
Right, Sankar. So basically, it is not one tool that works in order to integrate MTA with DevOps, but instead it is a set of tools with each having a different role at different levels. For example, like if I start with, when we talk about test case management or test management tools, we require tools like Jira, Rally, etc. to manage our test cases, or or even we require Excel kind of things to manage our test cases, entire manager user stories, the use cases, etc. Moving ahead, then we have the CI/CD tools like Jenkins, Bamboo, Hudson. These are required to execute the test cases once a part of the code is ready by the developers. And finally, uh, what is the main topic for us today is, we were talking about the automation tool, which is required, that will help to automate the scripts and to execute them. This needs to be integrated with all these tools, or these all these tools need to be integrated together to provide us one powerful platform that will help us in implementing test automation successfully. Hence, before the tool, it is integral to perform some primary activities which will actually act as enablers in making the test automation activity a success. Now, when I talk about other activities, there are multiple activities that we need to perform in order to make this, test automation a success. So, the first activity is about um, qualifying the application, whether the application is even the right candidate for test automation or not. Probably the application you have developed is very small. At times, uh, test automation is not really a need. It is kind of a wish that people want uh, test automation to be there in place. Everywhere, everyone's talking about test automation, test automation. So at times there's kind of a wish that yes, we want test automation for our application. But that's not the right approach. Probably the application is not that big that it needs to be even tested through automation. It can be done in a cost-effective manner manually. So their test automation might not be even required, and it might not be the right candidate for test automation because test automation in itself takes a lot of effort. So it is important that you analyze and you qualify an application whether is it even the right candidate or whether is it even automatable. So that is it. These are a few key things that need to be taken into consideration when we say that this, yes, we want to get this application test automated. So to start with, there are few factors that will help you analyze and determine whether the uh, application is even the right candidate for test automation or not. So first of all, the first main criteria is assessing the size of the application, whether the application even needs to be automated or can it easily be done and better tested manually. So this is one of the key factors that needs to be assessed. After which, there is one thing that people often miss out on, and I have heard of this issue many a times, that if you have an entire suite of test cases, say about thousands of test cases, people think that getting it automated would help them and the entire suite would be automated. But the answer is not all test cases are even automatable. Based on my experience, I have observed that only 80 to 85% of all manual test cases are actually automatable. Hence, it is important to scope out the automatable test cases before the start of the activity. Once the activity starts and you define what needs to be done when, at that time it would be difficult because the milestones that you might have defined, they might get hit or they might get altered. So it is important that you analyze and define the number of test cases that are actually automatable in advance, or you list them down separately. Talk about DevOps, when you talk about Agile and all these things, it's all about fastening our release cycles or increasing the frequency of release cycle. After, due to which what happens is that testing often takes a backseat. Hence, it is important to have a mobile applications roadmap in place. So with release frequency increasing, mobile test automation is of course the key and it is really helpful. But yes, having it assessed and creating a roadmap in advance is really important. It will really help you in achieving your mobile test automation successfully. And finally, the number of devices and platforms on which the execution needs to be done and the scripts need to be stabilized on, that needs to be listed in advance.
Well,
Often it happens.
mhm.
Often it happens that you have the number in mind that you want it on 5 devices, 10 devices. But what are those 5, 10 devices? It is important to have a list of those devices. You need to be sure what devices you want them on because the reusability of your script will be possible only when you know where it needs to be executed. It's not that all scripts cannot run on all devices, but there might be some scenarios that functionality might get varied due to different manufacturer or something might get varied at the back end, and that kind of tweaking needs to be done in your script. So yeah, there's suggested that you better have a list of devices beforehand.
Great, Nikita. So now that the application has been analyzed as the right candidate for the test automation, are we good to go now, or there is still anything else that needs to be done from our end?
Okay, good question, Sankalp here. So yeah, so now that the application has qualified as the right candidate for test automation, there are a few independent activities that are basically kind of prerequisites for MTA. So
Okay.
that needs to be done.
Okay. Can you list them those?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, the most important is creating a device matrix. So the matrix is created on the basis of one primary factor, and that one primary factor is location of the target audience of the application. So when I say the location of the target users, it is all about where are your users located, what kind of phones they would be using, what kind of devices do they have, what kind of networks are they using. So based on where the application will be most used, for example, if it is to be used within an organization, then the device matrix is totally simple and it is limited to a few devices. But if it is going to be accessed from across the globe, then the device matrix would be totally different. It could be huge, it could be vast. So this is just one of the primary factors. But apart from that, there are other key factors that support our device matrix creation activity. Majorly, it's about the manufacturer, the brand in that particular area. Then you have the operating system, whether it's iOS, Android, Windows, etc. What kind of support do you want to give, or what kind of devices do you want to test it on? Then comes the operating system versions, OS version. That is very important. What OS versions are you supporting? Testing on it is important. It's so then it is about screen sizes. What on screen sizes do you want to test upon? There are screen sizes ranging from 4-inch, 5-inch, 6-inch, 10-inch, 14-inch. After the screen sizes comes the networks. It's again coming talking about the same networks. It might be a set of networks that the testing needs to be done upon. So that is another important factor, another supporting factor apart from the location. Based on the location, again, location is the primary factor, and these are the secondary factors, but they're equally important. The location would determine what kind of manufacturers or brands are being used in that region, what kind of operating systems are most common, what kind of screen sizes are most common, what is the network accessibility over there. Over that, there are a few other factors like version support roadmap in advance needs to be created. A device matrix that we are talking about all over here, it needs to be ready prior to the start of this testing activity. So once this activity is done, there is another critical major activity that is about test case management, that test case creation. So many teams often plan on starting with automation with no clue of manual test cases. So just to make it clear, test cases or manual test cases is the first step towards test automation. Without manual test cases, it is impossible to achieve test automation successfully. So it is important that test automation that all the manual test cases be brought in place initially, either in the form of Excel or in any test case management tool. But yes, test cases are the key thing, and they need to be in place. So moving ahead, I think once the test cases are in place, they can easily be clubbed together into either business flows or into logical flows or into different testing types based on the requirements. So when we talk about logical flows, it can be the user stories or they can even be end-to-end flows. Then clubbing your test cases into different testing types is basically required because there are two kind of testing types when we say there are functional testing and there are non-functional testing, and then there are subcategories. It is important because at times when we actually get into automation, when we start automating the test cases, if your test cases are not clubbed together, whether they are UI test cases or whether they are performing test cases or they are user accessibility related test cases, then it gets a little difficult to really decide that what test cases really do we first need to automate, or what test cases we need to pick. It gets difficult to segregate them at last moment. So it is suggested that you act
Mhm.
while even authoring the test cases, you club them together.
Sure, Nikita. Just a time check here. And also, it would be great if you can describe some of the case study, on basis of your past experience. That would be good for our listeners.
Okay, so talking about the case study, I just remember working for an e-commerce customer. Initially, they were doing some ad hoc testing with no defined release cycle. But with agile implementation, they actually started having some bi-weekly releases, leaving them very limited time for testing. That's when they actually decided to implement test automation for them. And that was actually used for the regression testing. As far as I can remember, the work started off slow in bits and pieces, but with time, all things started catching pace and scope was defined. Once the scope was defined clearly for each sprint, things started falling in place. After each sprint, that's when actual implementation came into place. They started having a set of test cases that were ready to be executed and were actually even executed at the each of subsequent releases. That's how they were even able to test, on about 10 to 15 devices in parallel. And this is just like
Mm-hmm.
one example, but there are many such scenarios where implementing test automation for mobile application has been a success.
Okay. So is that the only clubbing, or don't we need any club that test on the basis of the business priority here?
Yeah, right. Absolutely. We do need to do that as well. So, as you can see, I have marked 4 quadrants here. Now, when we have all test cases in place, they need to be further segmented on the basis of priorities and severity, with quadrant 1 being the most important one with high priority and high severity test cases. Then there is the second quadrant, that is high priority and low severity. So basically priority is about the business priority. So the higher the priority, it needs to be addressed first. Now, while all the above activities like device matrix creation, test case creation, and segmentation is being carried out, it is important. It is even important to analyze the desired tool of choice, because what are you going to automate with? That is the main question. So the market is huge. The market has so many uh, open source and commercial tools out there. So it is important to analyze what you want to use. There are plenty of good tool options available in open source tools, but the only challenge is leveraging additional programming skills to use these tools effectively. And on the other hand, you have the commercial tools that are more reliable with better customer support. Also, most of these tools are easy to use and are mostly DevOps ready. So, how do we identify the right tool? So, when you are deciding on the tool or on the framework, there are a few key factors that will help you in enhancing your decision, or in will help you decide your tool of choice. The first factor is that it should seamlessly integrate with your CI/CD tools. Second is that it should help you in parallelism. After which, it is even important that it should easily integrate with either cloud or physical device lab, or even with both if required. So these are few key factors that will help you in determining whether the tool that you're choosing is really helpful or not, or whether it suffices your need or not. If it is fulfilling these 3 factors, it will really be, it will fasten up your process. Now, in order to select the correct tool, it is very crucial that few other activities also be performed to make the tool selection activity a foolproof thing. So, the first key factor is you need to perform multiple POCs, that is multiple proof of concept, that will actually help you determine whether the tool you are choosing, it fulfills your requirement. Is it really helpful? Are you able to achieve what you want? Is it compatible with your kind of technology, with your application? Now, after all these activities, um, you are good to go, and with the actual implementation in your project. Just a few factors apart from this that need to be considered are: first thing is you need to clearly define the scope in advance, because often teams miss on reviewing and reviving the plan and scope, due to which, in case the activity carries on for a long duration, many more enhancements enhancements are even introduced, due resulting in a lot of extra effort in correcting the old scripts and working on it. Hence, it is important to keep reviving the scope at the end, or a little before the end of each testing cycle. Then, after you have defined the scope clearly, it is very crucial that you define realistic milestones. Often the milestone is very unrealistic, which leaves the team and all stakeholders in distress at times. Due to underachievement is one of the things. So hence it is, I think, very crucial that small and achievable milestones be defined initially. Once it gets fastened, then things get better. After which, calculating ROI is the key. Calculating ROI at the start of activity is important. Calculating ROI at the end of each testing cycle is crucial, because that's one of the factors that will affect the success of this activity. So it should be ensured that at the end of each milestone, or at the end of each test cycle, the ROI be calculated, so that you can determine really what is the state of this engagement, what is the state of this project, whether are we lagging or are we succeeding. So yeah, calculating ROI is one of the keys. Never wait for the end. So follow the rule of test automation. Test more often. Hence, create small test suites and start executing in actual project testing. After that, define the team structure in a planned manner and hire new resources with the desired skill set if required. So there are just a few key actions to pay attention to while designing the overall mobile test automation strategy, and I think we are good to go.
Perfect, Tika. Thank you. Thank you for providing us the insight. It was a great session. So, yeah, now we all understand how to formulate a strategy for mobile test automation and make it a big success for our organizations. So, what are key 5 takeaways which I have gathered with today's session is first of all, tool selection, right matrix creation, clearly define the scope well in advance, having the right team with the required skill sets, daily sync up, and with the teams where all the stakeholders are in sync. Thank you, Nikita, for the input here. And we have exactly 15 minutes for the Q&A session. I can see a few of the questions coming in. Nikita, I would appreciate if you answer these questions which we have received from our listeners.
Sure.
First being is how to ensure mobile test automation in foolproof.
Okay, so it is a common perception that mobile test automation should find more bugs, or MTA should improve the quality of the mobile application. However, businesses should understand that automation is only a mean for executing the test, and it will help you ensure lower level of bug leakages, but yes, it won't help you find more bugs. In general, mobile test automation is basically aimed to perform regression testing to ensure that the older functionalities that you have, they are still working with the new features or the new updates that are coming in. So there are multiple factors that actually help ensure that your mobile test automation is foolproof. One is that it provides maximum test coverage. Then the other factor is that comes to mind is that the automation script should be robust. They should not, fail for errors in the automated script. They should keep on going, or your script should not stop there. Your execution should not stop there. Then the automation results, they should be quite descriptive. The results are very critical. So yeah, results I think is one of the key critical factors that will help ensure that your automation is foolproof. And very important, yeah, many a times, many scenarios are missed upon. So false negatives and false positive should all be nil.
All right. So that answered our first query, and I think so. This is very interesting. The second query which we have is, what is the right time to start the mobile test automation? I think so. This is a question from a lot of people here.
Yeah, that is, I think, a very good question. So yeah, it is essential to pick the correct time to introduce mobile test automation. If not introduced at the right time, it might fail or it might not even be useful. So the right time to test is when your application is actually stable. The right time for implementing it or executing test cases is when your application is stable enough, that is across the business and the basic functionalities. if they're working properly, and of course your manual test cases need to be in place. If everything is in place, then you are good to go. If your functionalities have started fixing and whatever you wanted to automate or whatever you had scoped out, that's in place, I think you are good to go with mobile with test automation, of course.
Perfect. So that's the second question for you. I think so, you need to answer a couple of them. We have time. So the third question comes in, is mobile test automation is one-time activity?
No, mobile test automation is not a one-time activity. It is a continuous activity. So once the test cases have been automated, they need to be keep on maintained in a proper manner. If not maintained, they might fail. Because one application once developed does not stay the same, I believe. So an application keeps on having new updates. It keeps on having new versions, probably new enhancements, or probably fixes to the old ones. And the test scripts that are built today, they might not work tomorrow, or not exactly tomorrow, but after like someone tries them after long duration. Maybe the object properties have changed at the back end, or maybe some functionalities have changed. So it is important that the maintenance activity keeps going on in parallel. It does not require a lot of effort if carried on in a proper manner, in a planned manner. Like after delivering the test cases to the team, if it's possible that those once after delivering the test cases, if the maintenance starts after small duration of those test scripts on for stabilization and for execution, that is a suggested methodology that should be followed. If ignored, then if you try executing it after a long time, they're just stored, and you try executing them after a long time, the reusability factor of those test scripts is lost. So it is important that the test scripts actually are tested and maintained in a proper manner till the end, till the time they need to be used.
So Nikita, we have time for one more question. So this has been recommended by one of the. Is there any process for automation tool or the framework selection?
Okay.
Yeah.
Selection of mobile test automation tool depends highly on which technology the mobile application is built on. This is one of the key factors that will actually help you ensuring or help you determine that what tool to choose. Like I was even discussing recently, what are the key factors. So those are just the three factors, on top of which it is desired to perform tool feasibility before finalizing the automation tool. The basic features that should be looked upon in mobile test automation tool are record and replay, support for integration, tools for automated execution, then automating bug tracking tools like Jira, Mantis, etc. And majorly its capability to execute the test cases parallelly. If not done parallelly, then it might be really useful. So it is quite critical. Also, while selecting an automation framework, the aforementioned measurable scalability and maintainability should be the key factors. So with regard to the feature and the latest trend in testing, I think DevOps, that is the key word. Yeah. So the framework should be DevOps ready. Of course, it should be there. Also, the mobile test automation tool or the framework that you select, it should cater to your test execution needs. So like executing it on n number of devices, be it physical device lab or be it cloud device lab, with different secondary factors like screen sizes, hardware configuration, different OS. These should not affect your test scripts or the execution. So your tool should be able to cater to all these factors. So these are, I think, major things that need to be considered while selecting an automation tool.
All right, Nikita. Thank you for giving out the queries. I can see a lot of people have privately messaged me with their questions, and I also see the people have posted their queries over the chat section here. We have shortage of the time today, so randomly we picked. So, but we'll make sure that you have all the queries answered in your inbox. We'll have the answers shared to you by end of day today or tomorrow. Also, we'll share the the recording of this webinar to you guys. And on behalf of Crestec, I'll thank you all for taking time for for this webinar. We'll keep organizing these kind of webinars. We'll give you insights about what's going on in the market and what are the key benefits which you can take from the webinar. I thank Nikita for taking time and giving us the insight. Thank you, Nikita, for answering all the queries. We will answer all your queries separately, and we'll drop an email to you guys. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day ahead. Take care.
Welcome, Sankalp. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day ahead.